Greetings, Bubba Washington here with another flying solo review. Today I'm reviewing Hostage Negotiator, designed by AJ Porforio and published by Van Ryder Games. Does this solo game offer the intense feel of a hostage negotiation? Well, stay tuned and find out. Okay, let's quickly go over how Hostage Negotiator is set up for play. The first thing you'll notice is that at the top right here, we have this major player board right here. What this does is it keeps track of your hostage pool, the hostages that have escaped, and the hostages that have been killed. Also your threat tracker, and also your conversation track. The threat tracker will let you know, depending on what level you're in, how many dice are you rolling per turn. When your threat level is at the lowest level, you're rolling 3. When you're in the intermediate to mid-range right here, it's rolling two dice, and then when you get to the very end, the threat level, you're at the 1 die that you're rolling per turn. Now, the way the game goes, there's 3 phases in a turn. The first phase is the conversation phase, and this is where you'll try to adjust the threat level, release hostages, increase the conversation points so that you can purchase new cards. And then once you get past the conversation phase, you go into the spin phase. And any conversation points that you've accumulated in the previous conversation phase, you can use to spin to purchase upgraded conversation cards. Now the final phase is the terror phase, and this is where you're going to flip over these cards to see how the situation is progressing usually in the kidnapper's favor. So the way it works is that you'll start off the game with 6 cards in your hand. Now there's a value at the end of each card. You can see right here at the very bottom, there's a 0 in the conversation bubble. You'll start off with those cards, and each of the cards in these layers in the bottom one will be the cards you can purchase, and they have values starting from 1, 2, all the way up to 3, going all the way up to the highest one of 8 right here. So the way it works is you'll play these cards, and then when you can play a card, you'll, depending on where your threat level is, you'll make a threat check. So if you play this first card right here down in the play area, let's play the play areas off to the side right here, you're going to roll your threat dice, and depending on how many police shields you get on the police die is how well that you've handled that threat. Now, if you get 2 police shields, that's the highest level of success. That means you get a pretty good typical reward. You get 1, then you get a pretty decent reward. And if you fail, usually something negative happens to you, like you lose conversation points, or the threat level might increase. Now, there is a chance that on the 6-sided dice, 2 of the sides each have police shields. One side has a symbol with 2 cards on there. And if you could roll that, you can discard 2 cards from your hand to change that symbol from the 2-card symbol into a police shield. So there is that chance where you can mitigate the dice rolling effects slightly. The rest of the 3 sides are blank, and those represent failure. Now, in the beginning of the game, in the first scenario, you'll have your kidnapper card right here, and what this will tell you right here, you can see, is you'll have a threat level at the top, how many hostages you have, and below that is a threat level where you start at. This one starts with 7 hostages in the pool and a threat level of 4. So with a threat level of 4, we're rolling 2 dice. Now, as the conversation phase goes on, you'll spin these cards and you can use these. Like I said, you can take the actions on the cards. You can also use 2 cards to flip a die result. But at any time, you also can discard a card face down, and that represents you just increasing your level up on the threat or the conversation marker, which will allow you to purchase more cards. Now, in the conversation phase, you do not have to use all your cards. In fact, it's actually a good idea to hold off on some of your cards because, as you remember, this game there's a weird rule in this game which says that if you use a card, you cannot purchase a card with the same name the next round. And it's kind of simulated in conversation where you're not going to say something and then like 2 seconds later turn around and say the exact same thing. It's not a natural conversation that usually happens. So that's a good mechanic, the way this game handles that kind of natural conversational flow with the conversational phase. Now what happens when you, after you go to the conversation, you go to the spin phase, any points you have along this track, you can spin all the way down to, for say you have 4 points, you can spin 4 points. And any used points you don't have are left or gone. So it's actually, you know, wise to spend all your points because they don't persist from round to round. Now, you can purchase, when you purchase cards right here, and you're out of points, if you have any 0 cards in the first first phase, you won't have any 0 cards. They'll go here. You can actually purchase these, and they don't affect how many conversation points you need. So what happens is the conversation stops, you go to spin, and then the cards that you've used go back into the pile. So that's how they get around. So that's how these 0 cards get back into this pile down here. Now keep in mind though that you could have a particular 0 card. There's 2 of each 0 card. So if you have one in your hand and one's in the discard or the pile down here, and you use the one in your hand, then falling around, you can't purchase the next one because it's still considered purchasing a card with the same name, even though it costs 0. All right, so after the spin phase, there's a threat phase. Now what happens in this is you'll flip this over and something negative will happen. Like for example, if you take a look at this one, it says +2 on the threat meter. So the threat goes up to, and there's some minor demands that the terrorists the kidnappers have in the threat, and you can, you know, spend points. They give you a little bit of boost, but sometimes it affects you negatively. Also, you can discover what the major demand of the kidnapper is too, and this is generally, if you concede to this, it's generally pretty negative, or it could potentially prevent you from winning the game as well. Now, the game. Now, how do you win the game? The game you win when all of the following objectives are done. There's no hostages left in the pool. That means some of them could have been captured or some of them could have been killed. But as long as there's no more hostages in the pool, that's one requirement. The number of hostages that are saved must be greater than the number of hostages killed. And you have to either capture or eliminate the abductor. And that can be done based on cards within here that if you pass the threat level, you'll eliminate the abductor. Or if you get to the point where you try to rescue another hostage and there's no more hostages in the pool, that's essentially the police coming in there and surrounding the abductor and capturing him that way. Now, you immediately lose the game if one of these conditions occurs. More than half of the hostages are dead. So in a pool where we start with 7, if 4 of them were killed, you immediately lose. Also, there's cards in here that if you fail the threat roll, the abductor escapes, then you immediately lose too. And you also, if you have to go to the terror pile, that last phase, and draw a card, and there's no cards in here to draw, and you haven't completed the objectives, you lose that way too. This game is very tough. It takes a few turns and a few games to learn how the ins and outs of it and what some of the strategy is. But if you want to know my final thoughts about the game, please stay tuned. Wow, is this game super intense. It definitely lives up to the hype of producing a nail-biting experience, which sometimes, most of the times that I played, came down to the very last second and that very last die roll, whether I was going to survive and rescue the number of hostages, or was the abductor going to get away or be killed. It was just crazy games that I had. Every game I had was definitely, I was on the edge of my seat. I love the way the card mechanic works. Of just like a normal conversation, you're not going to say the same phrases over and over again. Therefore, you can't use the same cards over. Once you've used them, you can't purchase another one and reuse it again in the next part of the conversation, because that just would sound unnatural. In this game, being able to take that kind of just little thing you wouldn't even think about and translate it into a game mechanism, bravo, that was an awesome job. I really like that. Like I said, it offers the intense experience that I'm looking for with a game called Hostage Negotiator. It's got clever mechanism in the way that it handles conversation, and it simulates that. Once I said, this game offers a ton of replayability. Not only do you have 3 scenarios that come with the game, but in the back of the rule book, there's also some like little achievements that you could try to get when you're playing these scenarios, like try not to use certain cards, or try to like make sure you don't kill all the hostages or something like that. But also, there's understanding this game is also has some expansion packs of other hostage scenarios. Now, that's all my praise I have for the game. Now let's get on to a little bit of the criticisms. First of all, I don't know for sure, but I suspect that the female abductor in this game must have been designed after someone's crazy ex-girlfriend or spouse or something, because her eyes are just bugging out, and it's just, I don't know, somebody was having fun with that one. But it seemed a little goofy and far-fetched. Also, there's another, the third scenario in there where the guy is taking over the hospital. It seemed kind of cliche. It reminded me of that movie with Denzel Washington, where his son got sick and he took over the hospital. And essentially, I don't like the way that scenario ends if you're able to meet the criteria. It does, from a legal standpoint, it doesn't seem like it's very likely it would actually happen. But hey, it makes you feel good in the long run, so that's pretty cool. Another little complaint I've had, the rule book was a little unclear about how when you played the card and you couldn't purchase the card again that next round, it didn't make a little bit of sense at first. I had to read the page, 2 or 3 times to really wrap my head around that. And after that first game I played, I was like, oh, okay, that makes a little bit more sense. Another complaint I have is at the very end, on the back of the rule book, there's a little cheat sheet about what helps you to remind you to play. I wish it would have had something about that if you get to the point where there's no more hostages to rescue, and you actually can rescue a hostage, that's essentially as capturing the abductor. That right there, my first couple games I misplayed that rule, and once I understood what that meant, my strategy changed a little bit better to help me win my my final game during my testing phase. But other than that, this game is an amazing game. I highly recommend it. I definitely give it 2 thumbs way up there. Hey, Bubba Washington here. Thanks for taking time out of your busy day to watch my review. It really means a lot to me that you spend a couple minutes with me just reviewing and listening to my final thoughts about Hostage Negotiator. I really enjoyed this game, and if you happen to think you'll enjoy this game too, based on this review, look down in the description below for this video. There's a link, an Amazon affiliate link to where you can purchase Hostage Negotiator from Amazon. Also, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. If you enjoyed my video reviews and want to see more of them, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. You'll be notified when I upload a new video. I try to upload a video every Friday as best I can. And once again, thanks again for taking time out of your day to watch my video review of Hostage Negotiator.